What's up, guys? How's it going? As you can see from the title, I wanted to tell you a story about this really cool guitar that I have. As many of you know, I'm getting back into guitar again. It's been many years since I played. I used to be, of course, when I was a teenager in the late 80s, early 90s, I was very much into playing guitar. And I used to have a ton of stuff. I wanted to show you this. As you can see from the title, you can see right here, it says Gibson on it. This is the serial number that dates, I wouldn't be able to show it, it's back here, but it dates to about it was produced between 1930 and 1943. So I'll just say it's a 1943 Gibson. I need to take it to get it fixed because it's hard for it to stay in tune. It still does. It's still not good. I tried to tune it earlier, so you can kind of hear it needs to be set up probably. But you can see right here, see the bridge, if you can tell. Well, maybe if I do it this way. See how the bridge is coming off. Actually, on this side it's good. Let me show you on this side, actually. This is the side that's coming off. See how you can see it's lifting off there on the side there? This thing is pretty beat up. Again, it's from 1943. You can see it's got this. There's something weird happened here. I can't tell if that's like glue or it's wear or what actually happened here, but it goes all, I don't know if it's just wear, but you can see it goes all the way around the guitar. It's got some crack in the back here, right about here. If you hold it up to the light, you can kind of see through it a little bit. But this thing is just super cool. I'm actually going to detune it because I don't want any more pressure on this bridge. I was going to try and fix it myself. I researched it on YouTube, but it's authentic the way I look it up, and they were like, oh, does it have a stamp in the back? Which it doesn't. All this stuff is original. And you can just even see the neck is just, and I believe the wear, so the story, I believe it's because, so you see how people hold it like that. So let me tell you the quick story on this thing. It's really sentimental to me, actually, but this was just given to me I won't say for free. I made a trade, but it was a bad trade for the guy, but he knew it was. So like I said, when I was a teenager and up into my late teens, early 20s, I was just hardcore guitar guy. I had just a ton of equipment. So, but before I joined the Army in 2000, I took all the stuff that I had. So I'm trying to remember that far back of everything that I had. I had, a Jackson Rhodes V. I had an Ibanez. I don't even remember the model number, but I had like 3 guitars. I had an Ibanez. I had a Fender. I had a Jackson V. I had a Digitech. I believe it was an RP12 back then. I had a Marshall half stack. I just had tons of music stuff that I collected over the years and stuff. And other amps and stuff like that, and I had like a couple acoustics. And so when I was joining the Army, I kind of wasn't really playing that much anymore. I was in my 20s. I was really much more into partying and things like that. And then I knew I was going away, so I said, well, I'm gonna just take everything I own to like Guitar Center and just trade it all in and just get an acoustic and an electric, and that's it. And a small, I had a little Randall amp from the early 90s that I kept, and it was probably those little Fender amps that you get like in the practice boxes like they sell at Christmas. It was probably about 2 times the size of that, so it was good enough. So I was basically just going to have one, and I was just trading everything in on a cheap Fender Strat Squire, the $100 one or the $150 one they give at Christmas, because I wasn't really, going to be in a band anymore or anything, so I just wanted something to mess with, an acoustic and an electric, and just an amp. No effects, none of that stuff. So I go to Guitar Center, I load up my car, take everything down there. I traded in, and again, I don't remember how much money I got for everything, but I walked out of there with an Ovation, brand new Ovation acoustic, which I still have, actually, which is in that case right there. I still have that. And I got a black and white Fender Strat Squire. It was like, what, $100, I think, back then. And then I had the rest in cash, whatever they didn't take. They bought everything, which was cool, because that processor alone was a couple $100. But anyway, so I got all that stuff, and I noticed this old guy walking around, and he had this old case, which, the case even is from like probably the 1940s. It's just a cheap, old ass case. Let me open it. It's got like this, foam inside, but the foam is so, it's not even really good anymore. It barely protects anything. It's got this old sticker on the back that's from like the 1950s, probably. So this guy, he's in there, and I see him walking around. He's an old guy. He's probably in his 60s at the time. And so I get all my stuff. I walk outside, and I'm loading stuff in my car, and he comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, I'm not mean to scare you or whatever." Now, remember, this is before 9/11, so the country was different back then. But he comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, sorry, I don't mean to scare you." He's like, "But I noticed that you probably know a lot about guitars. I saw you brought all that equipment in, and then you're coming out with an acoustic, an electric, and all that." And he's like, "I have this guitar in here," which he was holding in the case. And he goes, it was my next door neighbor's in Scottsdale. And he says, and he died, and he had no family or anything. And so he left, this is one of the things he left me, this guitar. And he's like, I was trying to start to learn how to play. He's like, but the strings are so far off, and it hurts my fingers. And he's like, I'm never gonna learn. He's like, you're young, you know how to play guitar. He's like, you should have this guitar. He's like, but I want to learn something. And he's like, I know electrics are easier on the fingers. And he's like, so I'll tell you what. He's like, I'll trade you this acoustic for that black and white Fender. He's like, I know it was $100 or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, well, can I look at it? So he opens his case, and right away, as soon as he opens the case, I look at the top and I see it says Gibson. I'm like, oh, well, that's something. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wow, this thing's pretty beat up. It's pretty old. Even if you didn't date it, it looks like crazy old. It's also missing the little thing for the strap here. And so I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this thing is pretty, even the tuners, I don't know if I can get up close, but, I'm trying not to bang this thing, but even the tuners, they look shinier on the camera than they really are. They're very dull, a lot of cracking and stuff. And so I'm just looking at it, and right away, I know already, I'm like, okay, this thing is definitely worth more than that Fender Strat. Those things are cheap. Even if this Gibson was made in the 90s, it's still, a Gibson acoustic is still worth more than a Fender Strat. No, it doesn't matter what it is. So, and I'm like, man, but I just bought an acoustic guitar. I'm saying this in my head. I'm like, I just bought an acoustic guitar, and now I won't have an electric. And I'm like, well, I'm getting ready to join the Army. I'm going to be in training for at least, 7-8 months. So I'll just buy another one. So I tell the guy, I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I said, that's cool. I understand. And he's like, you don't have to. I'm not trying to scam you or anything. He's like, the strings are so high off of this neck, off the guitar. He goes, it really hurts my fingers. And I just started taking lessons. And he's like, and I can't strum with this thing. I can only keep my fingers pressed down for, 30 seconds or something. And it hurts too much. And I said, sure. I basically didn't even really take this thing out of the case and examine it like thoroughly. I just saw Gibson, and I'm like, probably a good move. So I went ahead and got it. I've really never played it because, again, I was so afraid to, because it's so old, with how it's cracked and stuff. Now, what I'm thinking, the way that, the wear on this thing, because again, if it is from 1943, it's basically 1 year older than my father. So, it's like 73 years old or something, or 74. Depending on when it was produced. So it's pretty old. So he said, so I was trying to ask him, well, who was your neighbor? You know, why did he, you know, he said, now again, I've never been able to verify this. He never told me the guy's name, or if he did, again, we're talking, you know, almost 20 years ago. I can't remember the exact conversation. But he told me that this was a famous flamenco guitarist's guitar. That's what he told me. Now, again, whether he was, you know, lying or not, I'll never know. But it kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, so, you know, the way that most of those flamenco people hold their guitars is like a lot of normal people hold it like this, you know, but a lot of those flamenco guys hold it like the classical way over on the left, and with the arm right here, and then they're doing all this, you know. And if you look at where all the wear is, that would be, it matches up pretty good with somebody's arm. Now, again, this is 73 years old, so I'm thinking that this person, whoever owned this, he said that the guy was one owner, but I'm thinking, and again, that might be why the knob is missing for the strap, because I don't believe, again, I've never seen a flamenco guitarist, but from what I've seen, the way those classical guys play, the knob probably got in his way, because if you're holding it like this, the knob is going to dig right into your thigh here. So he may have been holding it like that and, you know, doing his little flamenco dealy up and down. I mean, it matches up, the wear marks match up pretty well to that type of playing. So that's the story. Well, basically, and then so for the last, you know, 16, 17 years, I really never played it. I have another acoustic. I just was too afraid to play this. And then recently, a guy at my work, we were talking about guitars, and I told him about this guitar, and he's like, dude, you got to play that thing, man. He's like, I bet you that thing sounds awesome. And this thing is super light. I mean, it's super light. I believe the model number is like I want to say it's like JS45 or J45 or something like that. But if anybody watching can tell, you know, what style it is. Again, the serial number, I would never be able to show it in here, but it's back on the neck block, and so I've looked at it and researched it, and that's what I came up with. But, you know, I was just at Guitar Center. I was, you know, trying to get I bought one of these little finger dealies to try to get my fingers back in play from before. The calluses are coming in good, so that's good. But so I asked him about this, and I asked him what type of glue, because I was going to try and fix it myself. Because I watched some videos, and, you know, they kind of rip it off, sand it, and re-glue it. And I told him, and he's like, no, we don't sell that here. He goes, what kind of guitar is it? I said, well, it's pretty old. It's from, you know, the either 1930s, 1940s. It's a Gibson. And he's like, well, you got two choices there. He's like, personally, I would take it somewhere professionally and have it done. He's like, it doesn't have to be here, but I probably wouldn't do that myself. He's like, because you don't want to risk, you know, messing it up. He's like, or you can write to Gibson specifically and ask them what kind of glue should you use, because you probably don't want to go to Home Depot and just use like wood glue. So I was going to try and fix it myself today. Actually, I was on my way back. I was going to stop at Home Depot, but I think I'm going to take it to a professional. Again, this thing's like older than my dad, and it's never been properly set up. Like, it's sat in this case for the last 15, 16, 17 years. Every house, every move I've been through, it's been in garages, it's been in, I don't think it's ever been in an attic, but it's been in garages, it's been in closets. It was on display for a while, like up on a shelf, but it's never really been set up for playing. At least I never did in the last 17 years. But I really would like to play it. You know, now that I'm getting into it again, I'd really like to get it fixed and get it, you know, set up so I can at least play it. Because, I mean, I've seen on eBay, now I don't know this one particular because of the damage and stuff. I'm sure a collector would still, you know, want to buy it from me. I've seen these sell for a couple $1,000s, but again, this one is, you know, not in like mint condition, obviously. I would guess it would be hard to keep a guitar in mint condition for 70 some years, but it's possible. So that's the story of this really cool Gibson acoustic guitar. I mean, it's just, you know, when I picked this thing up, I mean, you can even see the neck has some, you can see that the neck even has some chips on it, you know, but surprisingly the lacquer, I mean, if I got some polish and polish this thing up, it's still good. You know, it's still fairly shiny. The parts that at least, the parts that have, you know, lacquer still on them, that they haven't been, you know, really touched a lot. But yeah, I mean, this thing is just super cool. Very, very cool story too, that the guy just, you know, gave it to me. And I wish I could figure out, I've tried many times to figure out who the guitarist was, if that guy was telling the truth. You know, but again, it stays in tune for a little while. It's obviously not in tune right now. It doesn't sound that bad. Now, of course, obviously the strings are not, you know, original. But I don't think I've replaced these strings in at least a decade, at least. So they're 10 years old. They don't sound good anyway. But I just pulled it out this morning. I was looking at it, and, you know, I just thought it would be cool to get it fixed. So I'll keep you updated when I get it fixed and all that. But I just wanted to show this, you know, this guitar and the really cool story behind it. If you guys got any questions, or you have any idea of what exactly it might be, you know, let me know in the comments. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.